Okay, so everybody the last several years has gotten really big into putting braid with a fluorocarbon leader on their spinning reels. And I've actually gotten really fond to flipping it that way. I'm gonna show y'all right quick. I'm getting ready to do me some flipping this morning. Up here on the Mississippi River, gonna have a good time. I know I'm gonna get a lot of bites, and I'm gonna show y'all my flipping setup and kind of how I rig it up. So this is a 7'6" TFO Resolve with the ARC Gravity 7-to-1 reel. I like the high-speed reel. But I've got braid on this reel. This is 50-pound test high seas braid. And I'm gonna put me a piece of 20-pound test fluorocarbon on there for a leader. So to tie my FG knot, I'm gonna wrap, let me back up where everybody can see a little better. I'm gonna get me a couple of wraps of my braid around my finger. Takes a second to get it right. What you're really trying to do here is wrap it around your fingers where you end up with the correct size circle around your thumb and your index finger, which is really, there we go, kind of a feel thing. It's different for everybody. So you can see now I've got it wrapped around these two fingers and then around the circle around these three fingers. And I'm going to take my fluorocarbon now. This is 20-pound test. I like 20 for this because mainly I'm not going to use a very long piece, and the 20 just gives me a lot more shock absorbent when I'm using, you know, a bigger rod. So to tie my FG knot, I've got my braid wrapped around my fingers. I'm going to come underneath the braid the first time with my fluorocarbon, and I'm going to go over away, over towards me. And you'll see it's not going to take near as many wraps. If you've never done this with bigger line, it's not going to take near as many wraps as what it would take if you were doing, say, 8 or 10-pound test fluorocarbon to a piece of 10 or 15-pound test braid. So I've got about 3/4, 7/8 of an inch worth of weave, and that's probably only about 18 wraps. If it was smaller diameter, that would probably be 30 or 35 wraps. So once I turn loose of it, I'm just going to take my tag for my braid. I've got my fluorocarbon tag and my braid main line held together. And then I'm gonna do a couple of overhand knots. Over both. And then I'm gonna let go of my braid. I made up my fluorocarbon tag and pull it out here to the side and just do a couple more overhand knots, just braid over braid. And all that does is just keeps that FG knot from slipping loose. And when I cut it, I'm not gonna cut it super, super tight. Leave me about, you know, not quite an eighth, but not real tight. Now, I really don't need a whole bunch of leader here. And I really don't want a whole bunch of leader because I don't really want more leader than where my knot, my FG knot, just barely goes in 1 or 2 guides when I'm flipping. So for me, that's about 3.5, 4 foot of leader. Now, this is just a simple, you know, the way everybody would rig up the flip for the most part. Put me a little bobber stopper on there. I'm gonna go with a 5/16 Elite Tungsten weight. I love the 5/16 size. It's always been probably my favorite size. Now, I'm gonna use a 4/0 heavy cover BKK flipping hook. Get us one undone. And I'm just gonna tie it on with a jam knot, which is the knot that I use always for fluorocarbon. So there's our jam knot. And I'm throwing a smaller bay up here because I normally do on rivers. This is the Bug Junior that I make in Black Label. What I love about the Bug Junior, and I purposefully made this bait this way, is it's just big enough that I can put this 4/0 flipping hook in it. You don't want to get a whole bunch of the bait. Get you about, I come out on about the third ring on the bottom, pull your hook through it, then spin your hook around so that the keeper's touching clean plastic, and you can see it fits in there just right. Now, here's the main thing I like about this setup. A couple things I really like about this setup. Just simple little Texas rig, but when it comes to the braid on a flipping stick, this little bitty lightweight dinky bait, so it's not a very big bait. It's not a big bulky bait. When I'm flipping around up shallow, I can flip this bait far more accurately and easily on braided line than I can, say, straight 20 pound. Or up here, you know, the water's got some color. I may be able to upsize this to 25. So the issue with if you use straight 25, for those of y'all that flip a lot, if you try to flip a small little bait like this on straight 25, a spool of 25, it's hard to control or manage that big line, right? That's why so many of us use 17 or 20 or 15, because it's just, when you're plinking around, it's just a lot easier. If you'll use 50-pound braid, if the fish will still bite it on 25, and you'll be surprised, a lot of times they will. It allows you to flip these smaller baits on a lot bigger line. And the other thing I really like about the braid is, I don't know if you can see it in this video, but here on the Mississippi River, I'm sitting in a pretty good current. You see all this duckweed floating by my boat. So I know I'm gonna get some bites throughout the course of the day where those fish eat my bait and go out into that current, and it's gonna put a big bow in my line. If I'm using straight 25 fluorocarbon, when I set the hook, I have to really bear down to make sure that I connect good on that fish because of the bow in my line in that current. The braided main line helps so much with that. So if you're having trouble flipping, if you're losing fish, especially if you're fishing these smaller baits, if you're having a hard time making good accurate presentations and you're comfortable tying the FG knot, you really should try a setup like this. But you do need a good semi-parabolic flipping stick for this. You know, this Resolve, it bends way down the blank. You do not want a flipping stick that is all tip if you're going to use this technique, because you will break your leader. You know, you need a rod that's got some forgiveness. But that's my flipping setup. I seem to be using this more and more and more over the last couple of years. You know, the spinning rod deal, braid to fluorocarbon, it taught us all how useful it can be, how well it lets you manage your line, eliminates line twists and kinks and all those things we hate about spinning reels. It'll help you in your casting rods and reels and techniques just as well if you'll just let it. You just got to play with it, experiment it, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It can absolutely be a huge benefit in casting as well as in flipping. I mean, as well as in spinning. All right, so now we've got everything all fixed up. Let's see if we can put it to use and catch one. There. That's a perfect example of that braid too. The fish took off in that current, and that braid, it just doesn't show any mercy. BKK stabbed right. If y'all haven't tried this flipping hook, this is an amazing flipping hook. Pretty little Mississippi fish, Mississippi River largemouth. All right, I'm gonna get me another bug. Y'all have a good day.